The other day, I asked my daughter Annie, who's 23 years old, what part of GTD did she use the most? And without missing a beat, she said, next action thinking. And I thought that that was really kind of interesting that of all the components of GTD that she's learned over the years, that the next action thinking is what she really grabbed onto. And I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about that because one of the things that I see time and time again when I'm clarifying and organizing with a client is that they have a tendency to jump to, well, where does it go? Or what do I need to do about it? Where do I need to put it? And what's happening is that you're moving from capturing to organizing and not asking the clarifying questions. And the clarifying questions, if you look at your workflow map, is these questions right down here. These are kind of the clarifying questions per se, which is you've got your stuff and you have it in your in. And the first thing you're asking is, what is it? And a lot of times people get stumped with just that first question of, what is it? And sometimes people have to resend the email back and say, I'm really not quite sure what this is. Can you give me a little bit more clarity? And that's the next step. Once you know what it is it actionable, yes or no? And if it's a maybe, it's a no. And I find that that maybe piece also kind of trips people up when they're clarifying and organizing. And one way to think about it is, no, I don't really want to move forward on this right now. So maybe you want to put that on a someday maybe list if you want to track it, meaning it might be actionable in the future. So they add that to the someday maybe list. But then if it's kind of time specific where they'll say, I really want to revisit this in 3 months, that could be a tickler. Because if you put that on your someday maybe list and you're looking at it as often as you need to, maybe weekly or as often as you look at your someday maybe list, you're like, yeah, but I don't really want to see this until, October. And so you might want to then put that in your calendar, maybe under an all-day event with the word tickler, to then activate that action then. If it is actionable, what's the next action? I have people sitting there sometimes really having to think about what the next action is. And that goes back to what Annie was sharing with me, because she was saying, Mom, I know that if I don't figure out the next action right then and there, I'm just going to let it go and I'm going to procrastinate on it. And that's not good. It doesn't work for me. I'm just going to sit there and figure out what that next action is. Once you know what that next action is, then that's when you activate the 3 Ds. Can you then do that next action in 2 minutes? Because it takes that long to put it in your system and retrieve it. So you might as well just do it. If you can't do it in less than 2 minutes, can you delegate it? Alana Wright just did a wonderful video on delegation. And I think a lot of people skip over that. They think about, can I do it in less than 2 minutes? If not, they defer it into their calendar or next actions list. And they forget to ask, wow, can I delegate this to somebody? And if so, do I want to track it on my waiting for list? If you can't do it in less than 2 minutes, and if you can't delegate it to somebody, then do you defer it to possibly your calendar because you want to do it on a specific day, or maybe you need several hours to be able to work on something. So maybe sometimes that benefits you from blocking time out in your calendar. Or do you want to put that on one of your next actions list to do as soon as you can? So clarifying and organizing takes time. And it's the heavy lifting of your day in some ways to define your work. And I still, after all these decades, come across things where it's like, I have to go, what is it? Okay, is it actionable? I'm still practicing. I'm still getting better at it. But I do know that I really have this really memorized. So if you'd like, my recommendation is to take a pause on the video, go find some email or piece of paper that has just been sitting there, and then come back and ask the clarifying questions. Okay, what is this email? that is a month old that has been sitting in my inbox. Okay, what is it? Is it actionable? Yes or no? And then continue going through the clarifying and organizing steps. And you're going to realize, wow, that wasn't so bad. And that's what I hear over and over and over again is, wow, that didn't take as much thinking as I thought.